They called it the perfect campaign. 164 worlds, 164 surrenders, not one battle lost, not one fleet turned back, not one flag left standing that wasn't theirs. Generals across 1,000 systems studied their tactics like scripture. Historians ran out of words to describe the streak. Then their scouts found a small blue planet nobody had bothered to name. Their commander laughed and said this one would take an afternoon. He was wrong. The Ascendancy fleet did not lose. That was the whole point of them. For over a century, they rolled across the galaxy like a wave that never broke. World after world, the pattern was always the same. Ships would drop out of the dark, weapons would power up, and by the time the locals figured out what was happening, it was already over. No drawn-out wars, no messy occupations. Just fast, clean, total victories. 164 of them, back to back, without a single loss on the board. Their commander, a war-scarred veteran named Halvex Dorn, wore that record like a badge. He'd built his whole career on it. Every officer under him had memorized the playbook. Overwhelming force, zero mercy, zero hesitation. It worked every single time. So when the scouting drones picked up a small, unremarkable planet on the edge of a nothing system, nobody on that bridge blinked twice. Third planet. One moon. A little water world called Earth. The intel reports were almost funny. No fleet, no orbital defenses worth mentioning. A species barely out of its own atmosphere, still arguing among themselves down on the surface. Dorn read the file in about 4 minutes and tossed it aside like yesterday's news. Sent the standard offer, he said. Surrender terms, 48 hours. They'll fold like all the rest. That was protocol number 165. Show up. Demonstrate power. Let fear do the talking. It had worked on proud empires and desperate colonies alike. Species with better tech than this one had folded in under a day. So why would a bunch of primates with jet engines and nuclear toys be any different? His crew ran the numbers, mapped the cities, marked the high-value targets on a glowing tactical display. Somebody even opened a bottle to toast win number 165 in advance. Nobody thought twice about it. Why would they? The math had never lied before. Down on the surface, though, something strange was happening. The message came through on every frequency, every screen, every radio tower on the planet at once. Surrender in 48 hours or face total destruction. For about 6 hours, the world panicked. Then, city by city, country by country, something else started happening instead. People stopped panicking. They started planning, because humanity had heard threats before. From weather, from disease, from each other. And humanity had a nasty little habit that the Ascendancy database had never bothered to flag. Humans do not do well with deadlines they didn't agree to. 48 hours came and went. No surrender, no white flag, no response at all, actually, which threw Dorn off more than any answer could have. On the bridge, his tactical officer frowned at the silence. Sir, they haven't responded. Then hit the capital, Dorn said, not even looking up. Non-lethal show of force. Level a stadium. Let that sink in real quick. It should have worked. It always worked. A show like that had ended wars on other worlds before a single shot needed to be fired at a living soul. But something was already wrong, and nobody on that bridge had noticed it yet. See? Humans had spent the last 48 hours doing what humans do best under pressure, arguing, then organizing anyway. Militaries that hated each other's guts were suddenly sharing intel. Old rivalries got shelved. Governments that couldn't agree on time zones somehow agreed on this. Nobody surrenders the whole planet without a fight. Radar stations across 6 continents fed data into shared systems overnight. Fighter pilots from a dozen air forces ran joint drills in secret, testing what their old jets could actually do against something new. Engineers pulled all-nighters retrofitting satellites, missiles, anything with a trigger, to hit a moving target in orbit instead of one sitting still on the ground. When Dorn's ships came down low to make their demonstration, they expected empty skies and easy optics. Instead, they flew straight into a wall of coordinated ground fire from systems that, individually, looked like junk on paper, but together, aimed with human stubbornness and human anger, they weren't junk anymore. 3 landers took hits nobody expected. Not enough to be crippling, just enough to sting. Just enough to make the bridge go dead quiet for the first time in 164 campaigns. Dorn stared at the damage reports like they were written in a language he didn't recognize. Recalculate, he barked. This is a level 2 civilization. They shouldn't be able to touch us. His analyst didn't answer right away, because the truth was already sitting right there in front of them, and nobody wanted to say it out loud yet. Earth wasn't fighting like a level 2 civilization. Earth was fighting like it had absolutely nothing left to lose. Here's where Dorn made the mistake that would end the streak for good. He got angry. And angry commanders stop thinking like commanders and start thinking like men with something to prove. Instead of pulling back to reassess, like his own training manual would have told a rookie to do, Dorn ordered a full ground deployment. Boots on the dirt. Real troops, real hardware, straight into human territory, to finish this the old-fashioned way, before word of the stinging counterattack could spread across the fleet and make him look soft. That decision walked his soldiers straight into humanity's actual home turf advantage. Not lasers, not shields. Geography, weather, and 300,000 years of practice fighting wars in the mud. Ascendancy troopers, built for clean urban combat on cooperative planets, got dropped into jungles that swallowed their sensors whole, mountains that scrambled their communications, and cities wired with tunnels and basements older than their entire chain of command. Humans didn't fight fair, because humans had never once, in their whole bloody history, needed to. Snipers who knew every ridge line by heart. Engineers who rigged bridges to blow the second boots hit them. Civilians who fed false coordinates to anyone who'd listen, sending patrols marching in circles for days. It wasn't one big glorious battle. It was 1,000 small nasty ones, all at once, all over the planet. And the Ascendancy had never trained for that kind of war, because nobody had ever made them fight it before. Every world before this one had surrendered once the math got bad enough. Earth's math never got bad enough. It just got personal. Dorn watched his casualty numbers climb for the first time in his career, and for the first time in his career, he didn't have a script for what came next. His engineers begged him to pull back and regroup, to hit reset and come at this smarter. His pride told him to push harder instead. He pushed harder. 3 more landers went dark that week. An entire strike wing got lured into a canyon and never came back out. Humanity wasn't winning clean, and it wasn't winning safe, but it also, very simply, was not folding. And a fleet that has never once needed a plan B in 164 wins does not have a plan B waiting in the drawer for win 165. It ended on a Tuesday. Nobody planned it that way. It just happened to be a Tuesday. The final push came when human commanders, still arguing but finally rowing in the same direction, hit every major Ascendancy strike group on the ground at the exact same hour, across every time zone on the planet. No single glorious battle. Just relentless, overwhelming, coordinated pressure everywhere at once. The same trick Dorn had built his entire career on, now turned right back around on him. Dorn watched his own tactic get used against him in real time, and for the first time in 164 campaigns, he understood exactly how every single one of his enemies must have felt. By the time the sun came up over what was left of his ground forces, the numbers didn't lie anymore. Fleet strength down, ground troops in retreat or worse, communications a mess, and no surrender coming from the surface, not now, not ever, because the people down there had already decided, somewhere around hour 6 of that very first countdown, that surrender simply wasn't on the table. Dorn gave the order himself, full withdrawal. Fleet retreat, the record that had defined his entire career, 164 winsy, unbroken, untouchable, ended right there in the dark over a small blue planet that his own database had rated as barely worth the fuel to get there. Back on Earth, there was no ticker tape parade right away. Just exhausted soldiers, exhausted engineers, and exhausted civilians, staring up at a sky that had almost taken everything, and didn't. Word of it spread slow at first, the way big news always does, then all at once. A species with no fleet, no empire, no track record at all, had done what 164 other worlds couldn't. They hadn't out-touched the Ascendancy. They hadn't outgunned them. They'd simply refused to lose. Right up until the other side ran out of reasons to keep trying. Somewhere out past the edge of the solar system, Dorn's retreating ships carried the story home before he ever could. And in every bar, every barracks, every command deck, across 100 worlds that had once bowed to that streak, the same 2 words started getting whispered like a warning: watch Earth.